Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on youtube.com and vtwproductions.com with your show hosts Fenurian
and Volacel, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week, or at least we would if they had been bothering to do anything other than getting themselves embroiled in scandal after scandal. And they're not even interesting ones, they're just the same old
They're really
ones.
kind of boring scandals, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately Ari's not with us at present. I don't know whether he will drop in later in the show. He didn't exactly make an announcement to us, but he's probably not really feeling that great right now since his beloved long-time pet has reached the end of his life now. So
yeah. So we'll leave him do his thing.
Yeah, he may come in later if he's feeling up to it. I don't know. But yeah, so we'll mush on regardless. If you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which you can easily get to by clicking on the link which is provided in the description underneath the show archive on YouTube.
And we'll restate that it's underneath the archive and not under the live show because YouTube has been YouTube. And I couldn't be bothered going and digging through it all at the moment, so I'll sort that out later. So, on the stream today, I'm playing a bit of Fall Guys. You know, the only game that seems to be what people are talking about this week.
I mean, when the only thing that people are talking about is a freeware game, I mean...
Well, it's not freeware, though.
Well, Ari keeps saying it's free.
It's not.
Well, why does he say it's free?
I have no idea. It's like $30.
Maybe he got it for free. Maybe somebody bought it for him.
Maybe. So, what it is the new Battle Royale game. But unlike all the Battle Royales being really boring shooters with completely insufferable twats everywhere, this one has no twats, or at least if it does have twats, you can't hear them. And it is pushed through the filter of Weird Japanese Game Show. In fact, a lot of these minigames I think I've actually seen on Weird Japanese Game Shows.
It's just a matter of time till it fills up with twats.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've already seen people being twats in the game. Like they'll reach the end of a race level, and then they'll just stop and try and grab people and throw them off the edge.
I see.
Rarely works, but it's enough sometimes to slow people down and annoy. So yeah, you are basically this little potato man. Mine is wearing a bird head because reasons. And you're thrown into a sequence of challenges. Usually the first one is a race of some description. It's like run through the obstacle course, get to the end. Before all the slots fill up. So I'm going to play a bit of that. There are other kinds as well. Like there's a couple of team events. One is a soccer event where you just need to smack a ball into a goal, or sometimes it's push a ball as a team to the end of an obstacle course, while the other teams are free to jump over the barriers and get in your way. Which is actually not, I'm going to call twattishness, because that's how you're supposed to play the game.
So this is like Mario Party with less rules.
Essentially, yeah. You can only really jump, do a dive, I'm going to call it an attack, which is basically you bump into someone doing that and everyone falls over and rolls around on the floor for a minute. Or you can grab people. And that's basically it. You don't move overly fast because you are essentially a walking potato. But it is, however, a lot of fun. It's very bright, very colourful. Everything looks like it's covered in cheap gym mats.
Oh,
here we go. Yeah, it's everything is padded.
I see.
So everything looks very soft and easily bounce offable. Oh, hang on. Gate crash. I haven't done this one yet. No! Damn it! This isn't going to go well.
It'll be fine.
Victory is mine. Like, a lot of the events are very quick.
Well, it went by how many minutes from start to finish do you mean quick?
Races can usually... Whoops. What the hell just happened there? Races can usually go to up to about 5 minutes. The team events can go a bit longer. Like, there you go. I've just failed that one because I got my timings wrong. I haven't actually done Gate Crash before. So, yay, I got eliminated on round 1. Yay!
Well, somebody has to be.
Someone has to be. It is a fairly cheap game to buy. You just pick it up for like $20 to $30, depending on where you are. It is monetized, though, in for cosmetics. Like, you can earn a lot of the stuff by either winning games, by just basically being the last person standing at the end, or you will accrue purple currency, karma, I believe it is. And karma you can spend real much money to get, and that just lets you unlock more cosmetics. The really cool cosmetics, though, are reserved for people who actually win.
You sound like you aren't especially well acquainted with that scenario.
I've gotten up to the last round quite a number of times. I'm just in spectator mode now. I can actually sit here and just let the whole thing run. So you can get an idea of what sort of silliness a team game ends up being. I think the highest I've ever gotten is 2nd place. Or at least the 2nd place as this game allows. In that case, it was our final race event where it's just basically the first person to cross the finish line and touch the crown at the end wins. And one guy touched it right before I was able to. So a little bit salty about that. But it's just a good, dumb, fun game. There's not a whole lot of learning really to do on it. Unlike a lot of other battle royales where everyone ends up paying to win and getting guns or just grinding forever. You never actually change. You're just this funny looking potato person the entire time. Yeah, it's just a lot of dumb fun. So I'll leave that. I'll keep playing it throughout the show. Hopefully I'll win a game. Maybe. Probably not.
I wouldn't put any money on that.
Not while I'm
offense.
multitasking, no. Yeah. Basically, it just comes down to practice, as to figuring out how all the games work, what the best routes are through the races. In this case, the event Hoarders, where all you need to do is try and keep the soccer balls in your team's part of the arena, is largely blind luck. Because there is no communication in a team game at all. So basically what you're doing is throwing a bunch of random particles in there and hoping they're going to do what you want them to. Anyone who's ever
Does that qualify as communication, does it?
I guess as about as much communication as you can get. Maybe if one of your teammates is running the wrong direction, you can grab him and encourage him to follow you, but that's about it.
If he's running in the wrong direction, he probably means to be.
Possibly. Fruit shoot. I hate this one. This one it's a short race. It's basically just that one ramp in the middle there, and there's going to be fruit and crap flying all over the place. Also, giant sticks.
So is it that you have no idea what you're in for?
No. The rounds are shuffled at the start of each game, and you have no idea what you're about to, or what event you're about to partake in until you're in it. It'll spin the reel, and I'm not sure why it spins the reel, actually, because what it lands on is never actually what it does. So, yeah. It's just good, dumb fun. I'm not sure how long the game is actually going to last, though. Unless they keep a very high level of new content coming through for it, new games and things, it's probably going to fade out pretty quick.
Yeah, it does seem like it might be one of those flash in the pan things.
Mm. It is, however, novel and a lot of fun. So if they can keep new content coming for it, like I think the current season's like 30 days long. Something like that. Maybe a bit longer. I'll have a look actually in a moment. Or once this one ends. So yeah, maybe they add in a bunch of new mini games at the end of a season, or the start of a new season rather. That would probably be the ideal way to do it. As long as they don't go and charge more money for it. I think about $30 for it is about fine at the moment.
Are they going to be able to resist charging for each new season?
That's the big question. Okay, here you go. This is the map I actually came in second on. Essentially, you're in a giant pachinko machine. Enjoy. All right. As far as other stuff I did this week, we'll just transition straight onto that. Not much. Did a bit of stuff with my Black Desert Guild this morning. We actually did a world record attempt on one of the big bosses. And we missed it by 1 second.
I didn't realize you were such a high tier player.
It's not really a high tier boss. Like, that game is not about boss running.
So you came second in a race in which very few people bother to compete.
Yes.
I see.
I'm just that good. So, yeah, it's still, though, it's a boss that requires a lot of organization and setup. Once you're actually fighting it, it's like left click, then right click. If you have to keep clicking after that, then someone's done something wrong. But, yeah, the whole thing is all just organizing and trying to herd people to be in the right place at the right time and not screw up.
It sounds like all raiding.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, you hear people say that herding cats is difficult. They've never organized a group of MMO players. Ever. Let me see. Here we go. Featured items shuffle around every 2 days. Where's the season? There it is. Season is I guess, 65 days long. All right. So, yeah, that was fun. And also, I joined a D&D group. I got invited to join along and listen in on the first episode, first session, rather. Which was interesting. I had the opportunity to join in the game at the end for the last little bit as a sort of a late session cameo, which I decided not to because it turns out we've got one character who's probably going to get us all killed.
I see. So is this going to be a long-term membership in this D&D group?
Potentially, provided we all don't die.
What are your odds looking like?
Not good. Not good. So it's session 1. There was one fight in it, which everyone rolled appallingly bad for it. And of our party of, I think it was at that point 5, 2 people almost died. One person was actually in making saving recovery throws, or death rolls rather, or death saves. There we go. Get the term right. So that was fun. And then later on, everyone kind of ended up in the town, and the rogue decided he was going to go off and try and steal stuff, and in the process managed to piss off the big good of the series. I mean,
you were supposed to keep tabs on your rogue, man, because that always happens.
He actually rolled like a natural 20, so nobody escaped on his stealth check on the way out of the tavern. Because everyone in the party was expecting him to do that and was trying to keep an eye out on him. So
now, I mean, I understand how that's like role playing and stuff, but
sometimes you want to reach over and just bash the player's face in.
Like it's I suppose it's something that it depends very much on what you know of your DM, what he's like, because it's very much depending on the DM how well that sort of thing gets handled.
Yep.
It's very there's a huge chance that you're going to derail the campaign and tick them off. And ticking off the DM usually goes poorly for everybody in range.
He very, very nearly completely derailed the entire story. He was sneaking around in the palace and he found this guy sleeping in bed because it's like 3 a.m, something like that. And he very nearly, he was going to sneak into the room and cut this guy's throat. And sneaking into the palace, he wasn't supposed to be able to do it, but he was rolling like 18s, 19s, 20s the entire time. This guy is extremely important, and had he slit this guy's throat, it would have basically just ended everything there. Wasn't the big bad, he was just a really big good. But, thankfully, at the right time, he actually rolled a natural 1, so his character smacked his head on a doorknob. So that was a relief. My opportunity to join came in just as the big good came down ready to do a arse to ears adjustment. Because, Fern, where is your character? You know what? My character has been sleeping the entire time in the dumpster out the back.
Well, that's one way to keep yourself out of trouble, I suppose.
Yeah. So, as far as what our party's got, what have we got? We got the rogue, we've got a fighter who is, because of a creative interpretation of the rules, is dual-wielding greatswords.
Well, depending on your system, there is usually a feat to do that.
Yeah, this is D&D 5.0.
Oh, I have no idea for 5.0.
Yeah, I think technically not. You're not supposed to be able to do that, but yeah.
I think there was one in 3.5, except that it was something that you only did if you had a compelling reason to do so, because I don't think it was actually very effective outside of a build that was focused purely around min-maxing that.
Yeah. We have a sorcerer. We have what's called a spell slinger, who's... I'm not entirely sure, because he wasn't actually there that day, but... something about his class mechanics revolves around playing cards. I'm not sure how that works. Also, the dual greatsword wielder, we have decided we are going to turn her into a blade at some point. This is just one of those things that has to happen.
You're just going to make them spin around and around.
I have rope. We can make it work. Well, the point... I have rope and a strength score of 17.
I see. What are you playing?
I am actually playing a pugilist, which is a custom class, which I was originally going to be a monk, but the flavor of the character I kind of put together just didn't fit. Where essentially I'm playing, what's his name? Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist.
I see.
I'm basically playing him. So instead of running the monk, which originally was the ghost case, here, have a pugilist. Which is essentially the same thing, although it's got some very interesting specialties. One of which is essentially you are a luchador. The mask is actually a game mechanic, by the way, with that build.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So yeah, your character can put on the mask and... unlike a disguise check, as long as you're in the costume, people will assume you are a completely different person, unless they actually see you or you tell them.
A luchador wearing a mask is a completely different person.
Exactly, it is. So yeah, that is not a disguise check. That is just how it is. I ended up going with Sweet Science, as it's called, which is essentially a really dirty fighter. Lots of counters and things like that. There's another one where basically you have a dog all of a sudden. So you're punching things and then your dog bites things.
I see. Is this a class from a source book or one that they brewed up?
This is a homebrew that someone's done and is actually done a sort of a semi-official source book type thing with it. Like, I don't think it's actually official, but it's pretty close and it's very well balanced. Well, well balanced. Actually, Pugilist has the potential to be ridiculously overpowered, but I mean that's all fun. So
I always had a lot of trouble with D&D Monk because it just seems like you're underpowered so much of the time due to having to split your stats so many different ways.
Yep.
Because the monk uses, dexterity for dodge, wisdom for dodge, and armor class thereby, and they use strength for their damage. Anytime you have to split your stats, if you don't have a very good gimmick build in mind, usually you're going to end up underpowered.
Yeah, I think 5.0 actually changed that so you can use dex for damage. So you just throw everything in dex and wisdom.
I think it used to be a feat, if I recall correctly, to swap dex in for your damage stats, your attack stats. But even that wasn't sufficient because you had to use wisdom for it ultimately to be effective. And there was a way to get that as well, but they didn't all contribute in sort of even ways, such that you ended up spending all your time trying to pad your stats such that you didn't become completely ineffective. Although you could be extraordinarily effective once you did finally hit that sort of end phase and, transcended the bounds of mortality.
Oh, there you go. I just passed the first round. So that was fun. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I do have a sneaking suspicion that Rogue is going to try and steal my character's mustache at some point.
Now he's going to steal the mask, and it's going to cause massive internal party conflict.
Oh, if you actually have a luchador type character on there, yeah. I didn't pick that.
Oh.
I should have, but yeah. Maybe another time. But because that would be fun. Like, a character who is a luchador can't really... Well, they can fight when they're not wearing the mask, but don't necessarily. Depending on what sort of character you can put together, they can have a completely different personality with or without the mask. So yeah, that's been pretty much my week. I might have more stories of completely nonsensical silliness. I may also just decide to play D&D and pull a JoJo move out of my ass at some point. Actually, that's probably going to happen, which means I will have to pose. Anyway, what was your week like, sir?
Pretty miserable. Generally speaking, it's just been very rough at work lately. I'm not going to go into the gory details, but generally speaking, it's been pretty sucky. And I've been just pulling long day after long day with no end in sight.
Yeah.
As I've basically at this point I've resolved that I've got to kick a mobile game. Like trying to do the two very major events at the same time on Azure Lane and FGO simultaneously. It's demonstrably not possible with the amount of free time that I have. And it just ends up being in a situation where, I can't possibly succeed at both at this point. I just don't have the time. So I would end up doing ultimately a very mediocre job of both events, or I can actually do one event properly. And I just needed a catalyst for a long time to drop one of the games.
Yeah.
Which is rough because I don't really want to, but you can't have everything. That's just the way the world is. But in FGO, the new summer event is up, and it's very silly. I'm very much enjoying it though. It's a sort of a Groundhog Day themed thing.
Okay.
Where basically everybody goes on vacation to Hawaii
because reasons.
Like an intentional vacation this time. But it's basically you've got a signal of a foreigner class servant that has appeared in Hawaii in the present day, and you go off to investigate it. And it turns out that as things go, BB is involved, which means things are going to get out of hand very quickly because she's insane. And basically it's happening at the same time as Servant Fest, which is like the Comiket equivalent for servants. and so they're all forming their various groups to make Dojin. Except,
Okay.
some of them are just there on vacation. Some are there as attendees. Some are there as circles producing goods. But Blackbeard, for instance,
Oh,
is a
no.
recurring character.
But
I'm
why
having
is he?
difficulty adapting to the idea of good guy Blackbeard because he's basically your friendly mentor through the early part of the story.
Oh, that's gonna go well.
Because basically nobody knows otaku culture like Blackbeard.
He is an enormous weeb. I will give him that.
So yeah, you've got to deal with a lot of good guy Blackbeard early on. So you are participating in this, and it turns out that BB has put up a grail as the reward because she's managed to get herself fused with Pele,
The volcano
goddess.
god?
Yeah. Because apparently the foreigner attacked Pele and did enough damage that she didn't have enough power to do anything on her own. So in order to deal with that situation, BB needs somebody who's she's basically managed to craft a grail and has to put it up as a reward and get somebody who will do what she wants with it, aka you, to use it to restore Pele so that they can get unstuck from each other. Or at least that's what she says the story is. BB never tells the truth.
Yeah,
or at least she never tells the whole truth. She tells enough of the truth to get what she wants out of you. And no more than that ever. But so basically you are there with the only servants who were slumming it in Chaldea at that particular time, because nobody told you that everyone was going off on vacation.
Because of course they didn't. They just assume you're there.
So you and Mash were quite literally intending to spend the entire summer vacation in your room playing board games.
Considering the normal way vacations go there, that's probably actually a good idea.
Yeah, it's certainly safer than certainly safer than the usual occurrences.
Yes.
But so you find out about this, and the only other ones left behind are Ushi Wakamaru and Robin and Jean Alter. And so this motley crew goes to Hawaii and ends up getting drafted into Servant Fest. The main motivation being that it turns out that that ruler Jean d'Arc is actually one of the most popular Dojin authors at the fest, and in the previous year was the biggest selling one. So of course Alter needs to outdo her. You can't stand the thought of leaving that one alone. She has got to challenge her and win, obviously.
She's so bad at being a bad guy, though.
Well, the thing is that it's become an established canon rule that a servant's class changes in summer because they will go to Skaha and get her to work her magic on them so that they can have a swimsuit as part of their core.
Oh, it's just an official thing now.
Yeah, it's just a thing. This is just how it works now. So she's become a berserker, and which is sort of like the softened version of an Avenger mood-wise, I guess. So she no longer has a constitutive burning urge to get revenge on everything all the time
for no reason.
So she's still a sort of a volatile individual, but is generally speaking friendlier and more affable. Yeah, for her, which isn't saying much. It's not saying much, but she's definitely softened a little bit, which means she's still bad-tempered and will blow up at you for no reason at the drop of a hat, and is never honest ever. And Jean, having switched classes to Archer, has had some of her corset strings loosened, as it were. She's not quite so uptight as she is in the ruler role, because the ruler role very much suppresses your personality to you being more or less a part of the machine, because the ruler class is designed to be part of the machinery of the Grail War.
Mm-hmm.
So they tend not to have particularly colourful personalities, generally speaking. They tend to be very single-minded in their their role, which is not that's not a hard and fast rule, as the rule is like Amakusa and Dijon herself to a certain extent in the canon stories show, but she's a lot more energetic and rather airheaded as an archer, and her airheadedness mostly comes through in that she doesn't really take Jolta very seriously because she's on a she's basically decided that she's Jolta's big sister and has to act as an appropriate big sister at all times.
Oh no!
And pretty much ignores Jean Alta's feelings on the matter. So she's on a big sister rampage the entire time that she's in Hawaii, which doesn't go down well with Jolta at all, since she's trying to have a rivalry here, and it's not really working because in any rivalry involving Jolta, she's the only one who knows it's a rivalry.
Yeah.
At any rate, so you end up trying to write a doujin when you've got no idea how to write a doujin, and it's basically structured around a Groundhog Day system where if you fail to take the top prize and win the Grail, BB just resets the clock.
Oh.
And you go back to day one, try and write a better doujin this time, you scrubs. That's basically how it operates. So, yeah, it's sort of a bizarre story, and there's lots of other things go on, all sorts of hijinks take place while attempting to devise a way of writing a halfway decent doujin. But it's an extremely grindy event, though. Like, you need to progress a lot of different, gauges and meters and currencies and things. It's not especially time friendly. In fact, it wants to dominate your entire life. Yeah. So I'm enjoying the event more or less, except for the fact that it's a brutal time vampire of the highest order. Mm-hmm. But I was not especially worried about getting any of the servants associated with this summer. I was like, yeah, I can take them or leave them. I don't really mind. So I decided to throw some tickets at it. Obviously, because I didn't care, I got the 5-star Archer Summer Jean on the 7th ticket. I decided
because you didn't care.
I decided not to press my luck at that point. I'll just take the win and go. There's also the Summer Ushi and Summer Thought Queen.
Why is there a Thought Queen?
I don't know. And Summer BB is in fact the most important one, tactically speaking, because she has a very, very meta powerful ability in that she can freeze the cards that have been dealt for like 3 turns or something.
Okay, so you just get the same hand for 3 turns.
Yeah, so you basically you get your overpowered Buster Brave chain, and then you have her freeze the cards, and then you just use that all the time. So there's lots of ways to build up super damage turns using BB, but
nice.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm going to go out of my way to roll for her, because honestly, I'm just not really that much one for rolling for the meta, unless not doing so will get me left behind. That's why I made a big deal about getting Skadi and a big deal about getting Merlin, because the game will be built around them to a certain extent. That's not the case for BB, because her ability, while extraordinarily powerful, is very niche and requires you to have some luck. So nobody who builds surefire meta strategies is going to build around it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried about getting left behind on that account. And I don't have a huge love of BB as a character. I like Melt better. Of the Sakura 5, I like Melt the best. So I've already got her, which I had to roll like crazy for. Although she's a summer servant next year as well, so I'm gonna have to try and get her then. But yeah, so there's a number more Meta Breaker servants coming out, but most of them aren't for a while yet. Like the next one is the First Emperor of China, which is referred to shorthand as QSH in FGO, but he's basically Jean except more powerful, and okay. I've got Jean already, so I don't really need him for anything. He just happens to be so powerful that he can solo a lot of things quite easily simply by being redonkulously resilient. Like the fight will take forever, but he won't die, and you've just got to keep going, and eventually he will get through even really, really tough fights as long as they're against normal classes. And then the next big one after that is probably Arjuna Alter, who is sort of like the last word in berserking.
Mm.
Like, he just hits redonkulously hard. He's the damage servant basically. It basically replaced Jolta in that role.
Okay.
In the Japanese server, because
she's held that crown for quite some time.
Yeah, well, this one is also a berserker. It has tons of self buffs and things. Basically, he's a one-shot solution to an awful lot of difficult encounters. Yeah. If you can get him set up and alive, and then fire off everything, your opponent will die. End of story.
Does he still have the problem that most berserkers have, where he's a glass cannon?
Nothing will live long enough for that to matter.
Right.
That's how he solves that issue.
Just with overwhelming force.
Pretty much. But yeah, it's I'm enjoying the event. I just wish that it wasn't so time hungry, because it's possibly the most time hungry one that I've done in a while. And even Ari, who seems to have had tons of free time to play it, has managed to make only a modest amount more progress than me, which is surprising. But he went absolutely crazy go nuts on the banner. And he blew all of his quartz and all of his tickets, and then he bought some more quartz and then blew that too. But he failed because he wanted Jeanne d'Arc Summer, and he failed to get it. And then he bought some quartz, and the moment he bought some quartz, he just pulled 3.
Oh yeah, that sounds about right.
Like 3's sort of like the optimal amount to whale for, if you're not a super whale.
For most servers, yeah.
Because that's sort of like the sweet spot in diminishing return for MP performance for most servants. You know, if you're already insane enough that you can actually reasonably consider getting 3 copies of a 5-star. Which I think the only 5-star I've got 2 copies of even is Jeanne herself, the ruler one. But yeah. I'm pretty much giving up on the Azure Lane thing. Like I had supremely good luck with the gacha again on Azure Lane, and I've already got all of the new rare and elite boat waifus except for Hermione, who is unlockable via grinding. But yeah, I can't play the 2 anymore. It just doesn't leave me enough time to do other things, and sets constraints on your thinking and such, because you're thinking about, oh well, I have to do my dailies, and I'm going to make sure that I rotate my skill training, and I'm going to make sure that I keep the dorm stocked with snacks and other weird things like that sort of start to intrude on your thinking. Yeah, so I gotta quit it. I don't want to, but I gotta.
Yeah, gotta.
Yeah, so I basically put PSO2 on the back burner entirely this week, because I was focused on trying to do 2 gacha games, and I didn't actually want to do that because this has been a big release week for PSO2.
Yeah.
Episode 4 and the Steam deployment are coming out this week. And I don't know about you, but I looked at a video online briefly going through the material that is featured in this this update. Yep. And by the time I finished watching it, I'd already forgotten the first 15 minutes worth.
Yes.
Because the number of features added is just so ridiculously long. And this wasn't an in-depth video. It was virtually just a list of the things which were in the game. And it was 25 minutes long.
I think I watched the same one. And yeah, I can't remember half the stuff that is in that patch. Is just that massive.
Yeah, this is just making me think more and more. I wish they had deployed this at a rational pace so that I could at least get my thoughts in order on it.
Yeah. But no, gotta cram it all in before Genesis hits, I guess.
Gotta go fast. Gotta go fast.
Gotta go fast. You can go fast too. I do have a Sonic Mag skin somewhere.
That doesn't sound appealing at all. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting into some of that content as well. You told me that Tokyo was worth seeing.
Oh, the boss of Tokyo. Tokyo has laser T-Rexes in it.
Well, Real Japan has laser T-Rexes in it as well, doesn't it?
It does. It has Godzilla. The final boss of Las Vegas, though, is something I'm not going to spoil. It's something you've just got to see.
Right. Is that a new standard map or?
Yes, it is.
Okay. At any rate, yeah, I'm looking forward to that, but I haven't had any time for it this week. I don't even know what's in the season pass this week, this month, the season. I don't know how long.
Some costumes in there.
Yeah. At any rate, I found out last season that if you clear everything perfectly, you make as much. What is it?
Star
Gems. I get mixed them up with Saint Quartz.
Space gems.
I get as much of that if I clear the entire season completely as I spend to unlock the extra rewards. So it actually balances out, but you've got to put in enough effort to actually unlock everything, which takes time that I wouldn't have if I was trying to play 2 mobile games. So I'm essentially exchanging one grind for another, but at least the PSO2 one is one I can play with other people.
Yeah, you're not just boat waifooing all on your own.
Yeah, I do like the boat waifus, but unfortunately, I don't actually need boat waifus taking up my entire life, especially since I already have Kirihime to deal with, who seems to get pulled on every other gacha. Yeah. What else did I do? I duly and diligently and unwisely decided, right, I'll bite the bullet, grit my teeth, and try and make progress towards getting caught up on Sword Art Online. Yeah. It got off to a good start because Kirito is basically in a coma at the start, where I picked up again from where I left off, and he can't voluntarily speak or act in any way, and he has, as the exposition dump explains at length, no ego, just instinct left.
Okay, so he's just an empty shell, really.
Yeah, he's a vegetable. He just sits there clutching his swords. Basically, is all he does all day.
Oh, so he's got to maintain a minimum level of edge, of course.
Well, yeah.
So this is sounding like an enormous improvement.
It is an enormous improvement, except for everything else.
Yeah.
So they can't possibly realize when they're onto a good thing. At any rate, they make Alice into the main character, since she's the whole reason that Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh go off on their big quest to begin with, because they're trying to save her, and her previous personality has been more or less obliterated, and she's become an Integrity Knight, part of the Axiom Church's structure for upholding the order in that world. But this is after the fact, when they've had their rebellion. They've, as far as they know, I don't know whether they actually did or not, whether it's going to be a returning villain. They've seen off the administrator, and that the events surrounding what's going on in the outside world, while Kirito has adventures inside the virtual world, have basically been what fried Kirito's brain. The idea being that basically, because the system that they were testing out on the ocean was a soul translation engine, which uses your actual soul to log into the game, as opposed to merely sticking electrodes on your head. Well, the reason they used it was because he had taken such brain damage that they were going to use his soul to rebuild his physical brain.
Right.
Because this is all sort of like a sci-fi take on real world quantum neuroscience, in that it's pretty well established by anybody who's willing to admit it, which isn't very many people yet, that the mind doesn't exist inside the brain and is not a product of the brain. It's an adjunct information structure, which is basically only really explained by theories of philosophy and theology, and there's nothing in the hard sciences which can deal with it because the hard sciences aren't built for that kind of thing. But the mind exists and the brain exists. The question is, to what extent does one influence the other? And the broadly physical explanation is widely accepted to be impossible now. It's just that nobody really understands how the rest of it works, and there are lots of theories. The two most prominent ones outside of the pure physicalism one is mind-substance dualism, where the mind and the brain are two separate things that are interlinked, and idealism, where the physical brain is just basically an impression generated by the mind of what the mind structure interface looks like, and matter isn't actually a real thing. The problem is that neither of these positions can be explored very well using science, and unfortunately, it is necessary to develop some method to describe them. At any rate, this is the state of current thinking, and they've run with that and sought out online in this season with basically they refer to souls as flux lights, which is basically their interpretation of quantum neuroscience is that basically there are light impulses that contain the actual information of a person, and the brain is just an apparatus for interpreting it. So if Kirito takes a lot of physical brain damage, as a person he can't function, but since it's well established that the actions of the mind can cause rewiring in the brain, this is something that's been used in psychology for a long time. If they separate his soul's ability to act by placing it in the context of a virtual avatar of himself, and then have it live normally for long enough, it will rebuild his physical brain to the point where his body will work again.
Okay. But
because this is all experimental tech, nobody has any idea if it'll work.
I mean, as someone on the outside, though, looking at the story, I have to ask, why? We don't want Kirito back.
Well, he's also the center of the universe in his setting, though, isn't he?
That's
so everybody
very
wants
true.
Kirito back.
So if Kirito actually dies, then the universe ceases to exist.
At any rate, the whole reason why this whole project exists and the equipment exists and so on and so forth is that they have actually developed synthetic flux lights. So they managed to duplicate the information that comprises the soul of a newborn and copy it out multiple times and basically create a civilization in a virtual world.
This also sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah, it is a terrible idea. And they, having done this, the objective was to make basically. It's pretty horrifying because ultimately, though they don't say the quiet part out loud in explicit terms, the core objective was to create humans without human rights so that they could be used as pilots for autonomous war machines.
Okay. And has nobody at any point considered that this would be an awful idea?
Well, it's a Black Ops project, so nobody really knows about it. The problem is actually turns out to be that in universe that none of the inhabitants of the world have much of an aptitude for violence. Mm-hmm. They are extraordinarily, inhumanly law-abiding. They act like humans in every respect, and you can't tell the difference of them from Kirito's point of view inside that universe. But they don't break laws once laws are made by their civilization. They just don't, ever. And this is sort of a problem, because if they're going to use these to raise war machines in an environment where killing is forbidden, they will not be able to kill anybody once you put them inside a war machine, because they are 100% obedient. And Alice is the one character who basically she commits a very, very minor, ultra minor infraction against the law, and she's the only one who's ever managed to do so, even if it was halfway by accident. But so she becomes the focus of a lot of what's going on, and ends up being the focus of the two storylines which are being run parallel. The internal storyline being to fix Kirito, and the external storyline being suddenly this one AI, which is capable of everything a human mind is, including defying the established law, is a hot ticket item that everybody wants. And so there's basically a military operation, Black Ops military operation, to raid the other Black Ops military operation going on the outside. But so because this operation was taking place at the time, that them cutting the power at a crucial moment is what fried Kirito's brain the second time.
Okay.
So that's why he's in coma now in the inside world as well as the outside world.
They done goofed.
At any rate, so unfortunately, this leaves Ellis, who is one of the most powerful of the Integrity Knights, if not the most powerful of them, with the protagonist role. And unfortunately, she's a humongous Mary Sue in a lot of ways.
Oh, well, so we just swapped one out for another.
Yeah.
Yay!
So, what the story reminded me of a couple of times was new Star Wars.
Ew.
Yeah. Mainly because you've suddenly swapped a male lead for a female lead, although in this case it's swapping a bad lead for another bad lead. And she's, inhumanly good at everything compared to all the people around her. She's basically the chosen one. And generally speaking, the story has a habit of doing a very crude expression of subverting expectations simply by setting things up and then throwing them away.
Yeah, that's not how you do that.
Which is something that Star Wars is famous for now.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that from where I re-picked up watching it, there seems to be a lot of introducing characters only to dispose of them immediately for impact.
Ugh. What, killing them off or they just disappear?
Like killing them off.
Right.
They just they introduce them, they give them just barely enough backstory to make them seem like characters. They set them up in such a way that it seems very strongly like they're going to be a notable and important faction in the ongoing conflict, and then they just get disposed of.
Ugh. You can
and it's
only
very
do that so many times in a given series.
It's very, very well. The thing is, it's not really about the number of times, since compared to a lot of guilty parties, they don't actually do it that many times. The thing is the thoroughness with which they do it, and by that I mean where I picked up again. Basically, the PMC, which has invaded the Ocean Turtle, which is where they're doing the experiments on this Soul Translator engine. They have found that as they were retreating, the Ocean Turtle staff locked all of the primary systems to extract flux lights from the apparatus, which is acting as the server. And of course, they want just one flux light. They want Ellis's flux light because that's got military applications.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way to get her out is to take the long route, which involves doing so from inside their VR world, because that's where the failsafe is to get her out. Because the idea was that if they ever needed to lock everything down, they could lock everything down, send in someone of their choice using their security protocols and their super user accounts, and have that person operate the extraction from the inside. So in order to carry this out, they have managed to hijack super user accounts which weren't locked properly, which were ones for supervillain NPCs on the enemy side, which were never supposed to be used for anything. They're just sort of like artifacts left over from the early programming.
Right.
And so the baddies are now in there as like the Dark Emperor or whatever. So all of this, what I'm setting up to say is that they spend an entire episode setting up a faction within the baddie Empire territory who are actually hoping to broker a peace, except that whether or not they can depends on whether or not they can deal with the fact that the Emperor just wants war. And they introduce this character and his lieutenant, and they go into a story about how those two are in a sort of a May-December romance type situation, and so on. And they basically try and get the audience engaged with what they're doing, and then they just unilaterally kill them off.
What amazes me is this entire thing. Everything about this story, no one has said, hang on, this is an awful idea.
No, they didn't, because military projects are always an awful idea, but that never stops anyone.
Yeah, that's true. How's
But,
that super soldier project working out for you guys?
Like, you can't really find anybody saying that, oh, well, the Manhattan Project, that was an awesome idea. Like, that's not how you describe that scenario. I'm sorry. Like, you can say what you like about the nuclear program and the numbers of lives that deterrence might have saved in that theoretical world with no counterfactuals, but ultimately, they still built a bomb that they thought might set the entire planet's atmosphere on fire if they ever set it off, and then they set it off.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they did spend an entire episode setting up a plotline and then just chopped it off. They kill both of those characters in a, I want to say, unceremonious fashion, except it was a disturbingly ceremonial fashion instead.
Ugh. That's probably worse.
Setting up the bad guy to be some kind of. Well, now this is another problem, is that it doesn't know when to call it quits, because for a lot of casual viewers, stretching who aren't acquainted with the basics of what is suspected about the nature of quantum neuroscience, the whole flux light thing is already a sort of almost fantastical stretch.
Mm-hmm.
But then they make it so, like, the baddie, like the guy who's leading the team who are invading the ocean turtle, is like a crazed psychopath with a complete poker face, who one time in his youth he murdered his childhood friend just to see what would happen, and
What the hell?
was able to sort of like briefly interface with her soul for a second and see the world from her point of view just as her life was dying out. And basically he became a junkie for this and has been desperately searching for another taste
That
of
is
that
seriously
his
messed up.
entire life. So basically he's an unrealistically psychopathic individual who has managed, well, maybe not unrealistically, it's sort of hard to tell because psychopaths are often very good at hiding what they are, but he's risen to the top of this private military corporation, has been given this project, and coincidentally dumped into this environment which is just full to the brim with souls
Right.
that he is directly plugged into via a server. So it's basically his dream come true sort of thing. But that whole thing of like he was able to taste his childhood friend's soul as he killed her sort of thing. It's not implied to be a metaphor in any way. It's implied to be a literal truth.
That's just messed up.
Not only is it messed up, but it's also like an extra degree of fantasy that there's no reason to accept because there's no psychobabble around it. Like you can get away with a lot of things in sci-fi simply by having a lot of sci-fi babble to make it sound, passably reasonable. It falls below the threshold of suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
But this doesn't. There's no explanation for it because we know that people don't, drink in people's souls and get a euphoric effect when they murder their childhood friend. That's a thing that doesn't happen IRL as far as I'm aware.
I certainly hope not.
But yeah, so that was another thing that stuck out to me, is this ridiculous conceit to set up a character who, I think it would have been easier to understand if he was a workaday PMC chief.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd just been given this job and you put him in this world and maybe he becomes invested in it, or he becomes, enamored of the power that he's got in this alternate world and maybe decides, like the dude from The Matrix, that it would be better to just stay there and control everything.
I think it's just a problem with the general writing of Sword Art Online as a whole. Like, pretty much every series so far has started off with an interesting idea and then just kind of farted on it, honestly.
Yeah, it's like they never know where to stop.
Yeah.
They never know where to stop when it comes to making Kirito a badass. They never know where to stop when it comes to making Asuna a simpering romantic foil to Kirito. They never know when to stop with their blurring the lines between fantasy and reality. It's always seems to be the case with that franchise. They never know quite where to stop before it starts to make the audience groan rather than be engaged.
Yeah. Like, if they'd stopped early on in the very first season, you'd end up with Log Horizon, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a more sort of combat and romance focused version, whereas
Yeah.
Log Horizon is more focused on social policy. But
Yeah, but you get the meaning.
yeah, like it would have been a stable thing as far as it went. But they always go a little bit too far. Like I've read further in Log Horizon than has been animated, and it more or less continues in that vein. It knows where its strengths are and tends to stick to them. It doesn't try and branch out into any kind of wacky romantic hijinks or anything like that.
Yep.
So
Sword Art Online, that first season, kind of starts off figuring out, like, okay, we're in a game, how does reality work? And then Kirito and Asuna go and lock themselves in a cabin for the rest of the series.
Yeah, and it seems like there's an awful lot of story that never happens on screen, and in fact that's true as certain spin-offs have apparently shown, spin-offs that I'm not terribly familiar with, about, you know, the things that other people were doing during that period of time.
Other more interesting people.
But yeah, ultimately the season doesn't seem like it's going to rise above the previous ones in any significant way. It's just going to continue to be Sword Art Online, you know, a trend setter, but always the most banal example of its genre.
Yep.
Like it never descends to the level of like the really bad ones, but it never really seems to find its own character. Like, you know, Log Horizon finds its character in being about the way societies operate and how you build and maintain them. And other ones like the recent one about the girl who joins a VR MMO and then basically becomes accidentally overpowered by never really understanding the rules of gameplay and just, you know, face planting into every, you know, broken, overpowered item and that the game still has tucked away and becomes a celebrity that way. Like that, it's a silly and overblown story where the character is even more overpowered than Kirito is, but because that's its conceit and it understands it and it plays with it in its own sort of genre, it all works together quite well.
Yeah.
Whereas Sword Art Online just doesn't seem to have any character.
It really doesn't. It's just bland.
Yeah, it doesn't ever really stick the landing. I haven't watched through the entire series yet, so it still possibly has time to save itself. But
won't hold my breath.
When I stopped watching last night, Asuna had just descended from the sky as a goddess, after opening a ravine in the ground to swallow a bad guy, using her superpowers. And the bad guy, who's the lieutenant from the PMC, immediately recognized her as the player that she was in Sword Art Online. Because everybody knows each other, no matter how disparate their worlds. Like, he's clearly a foreigner from who works as the second in command of a bloodthirsty PMC, and he just happens to know who Asuna is on sight. Because. See, that was where I stopped watching last night.
That seems to be the favorite word in the Sword Art Online dictionary, is because. Like, why? What was the main villain's motivation in the original series? Because. Why did Kirito turn into a raid boss and eat some dude in the second? Because.
Yeah, that's why I think that, like, I've mentioned many times on the show, there's a fan fiction which crosses over Sword Art Online with Fate that I'm really fond of. Unfortunately, it seems to have been abandoned now after a humongous number of words, which is the way every fanfic goes.
Yes.
But they rectify so many errors in the story and make it so much more compelling simply by giving a goal to the antagonist, and that's ultimately what drives the entire plot. Is that the baddie, in this case, was a Magus, a, quote, failed, unquote, student of Zokin Mato, the Worm Master.
Right. That guy.
And he just had a magecraft theory, and he built a company to test it out, because that's what a Magus does. They stop at nothing to further their craft. And his theory was that if you recompile that, well, his theory ultimately is that every individual actually has the capacity to use Magecraft, except that some people's souls are compiled with circuits and some are compiled without magical circuits. And he had a theory that if he could just put people into an environment and then recompile them, artificially having a much higher rate of circuits, so that, rather than 1 in 10,000 people having magical circuits, it would be more like 9 out of 10 would have magical circuits. Then they would have the same capacity to learn Magecraft that every Magus does. And you could use all of those people to do massively accelerated development of Magecraft theories.
See, that's a good motivation.
Yeah, like there's something in it for him, both on an intellectual satisfaction level and on an actual production level. It has a good reason to draw lots of people into that situation and put their lives on the line, so that they will use every tool at their disposal to survive, so they become invested in the system.
It's not
and so on.
cartoonishly evil.
Yeah, because most Maguses aren't cartoonishly evil; they are amoral.
They are very amoral in some cases.
They're incidentally horrible people because it's necessary for their craft.
And it is a plot that is summed up with with more than one word.
Yeah, and also Kirito isn't overpowered in that story, which helps a lot.
Considering he's standing shoulder to shoulder with servants, I suppose.
Well, there are no servants in that story.
Okay, with Magus then.
Yeah, so the most heinously overpowered individual in the plot is Ilya.
Yeah, that makes sense.
She's the one that forces Shiro to play. Because this takes place after the story. So Shiro is now overpowered. Ilya was always overpowered. But Ilya's overpoweredness comes from the fact that she's the only trained Magus there in the main character's party. And so she knows the system inside out before touching it.
No, really.
And is basically able to get, a plus 10 billion % EXP boost as a result, because she doesn't have to learn things the hard way. And Shiro's OP because none of his abilities obey normal laws, but the system was built to handle that.
Okay.
Because of the Magecraft system. So he nearly blows his brains out trying to work out how to actually do projection, but once he does, he becomes, ridiculously overpowered, and actually the main character party spends a great deal of time up until a certain point in fear of the Nerf bat, because they realize how unbalanced they are, and they're worried that if they interfere too much, it'll affect the experiment, and the Magus will decide it might be better if they disappeared.
To be fair, they did just live through a Grail War.
Yeah, but Kirito, by comparison, maybe not so OP.
Yeah.
So he basically gets recast as a relatively clever player who happens to be friends with people who will help him excel.
Okay.
So he ends up basically Ilya forces Asuna to be friends with her very early on in the story, because she's willful like that. And drafts Asuna as the lieutenant in the guild that she unilaterally decides to form with her and Shiro. And she ends up being team babysitter, basically. But because Asuna gets drawn in, so does Kirito, because they basically make friends early on in the story due to coincidence. And so Kirito spends a lot of time getting laughed at for affecting like he's a loner, when in fact he always ends up playing with the same people. And he's got, in fact, rather crummy magical stats, but he uses ingenuity to get around that and
so it
develop
makes Kirito a much more interesting character as well.
Yeah, because he has to think his way through fights.
Rather than, I am protagonist, hear me roar.
Because another way that this fanfic setting version of Sword Art Online differs is that you don't spontaneously gain abilities. You have to figure them out the hard way, and some people fry their brains attempting to do so.
Oh.
But because the situation is dire, some people are willing to reach beyond the risks that they would normally take. Which is something, something that's very rarely explained in the supposed death game scenario of Sword Art Online. Is like people exist all along the spectrum of what they're willing to risk and what they are not.
Yeah.
So you've got multiple different sort of tiers of individuals that exist in the fanfic world rather than in Sword Art Online. They briefly say there are people who don't participate and there are people who are frontline clearers, but there was way more granules in the setting that I'm describing, because you end up with people who, like, there's one guild that they encounter which appears to have made their guild about furniture.
What?
Like furniture magecraft.
Right.
Quite literally crafting things like the luggage.
I mean, if you can craft the actual luggage, you win.
Well, that would be a bit OP.
That would be incredibly OP.
They basically they end up building a lot of their magecraft around the crafting of furniture out of rare materials, furniture which is capable of doing interesting things. So yeah, there's all sorts of weird stuff. Like, what I mean to say by this extended digression is missed potential. Those
Lots
two
of
words. And the grand mystery that hangs over all of it is, why the heck is it so popular? Because it keeps getting more seasons.
Like, if I want to sit down and watch some isekai, I've got some choices at the moment. Like, if I want to watch something with heart, I'll go watch Slime Time. If I want to actually see the whole living in a video game thing, I've got Log Horizon. If I want to laugh, well, there's plenty of other stuff for that. Konosuba. It's like, yeah, MMO, except with a party of idiots.
Yeah, I suggest you skip the likes of In Another World with my smartphone, and in fact, skip any work where the characters have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Just avoid smartphones, because it's not a conceit that is used one time.
No.
That's the thing. That's the really cringy thing about it. Is if it was just, there was this one series where the protagonist had his smartphone and that made him overpowered. Oh, can you believe it? But no, it's not one. It's not one series.
I am actually tempted, though. At some point, I think I might need to sit down and watch the isekai where it's in another world, but on my vending machine.
I don't know if that's got an animation yet, does it?
Maybe? Have to have a look. Either way, I'll read the manga. It just sounds so stupid.
Yeah, there's lots where people become reincarnated as interesting things, like a spider or a vending machine or something like that.
Interesting being a very loose word.
But as far as
things,
VR MMO series go, I do like the one about the girl Maple who just becomes ridiculously overpowered through no real fault of her own.
It's just adventures in ignorance, the game.
Yeah, she is basically having adventures in ignorance. Her best friend is a real hotshot, and she's able to show her the ropes to a certain extent, but you can tell she's already, before her friend logs in, she's already launched herself way down the path of adventures in ignorance. Because, you know, she plays a tank character who thinks an enemy is too cute to kill, so just lets it attack her continuously, therefore building her defensive stats to a ridiculous level.
Just with this little fuzzy thing chewing on her. Yeah,
I don't remember
watch
if it was
this one.
fuzzy or not. But yeah. Anyway, I've rabbited on long enough about that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to cover for my week. But I'm not sure.
But we should take a break.
Righto.
So we're just going to throw to a bit of random musical noises, and we'll be back in a few minutes. And we're back with more nonsense, I guess.
Yep.
All right, so we do have a couple of little newslets to talk about, largely PSO2, I guess, but some other stuff.
Yeah.
But first, we have an email. So I'm not going to... I can read it out if you like, before I start a new game in Fall Guys.
Are you confident that you can do so?
Reasonably, without going cross-eyed.
Yeah, because you see, this is long, and there's a lot of difficult words in there. Like, listen, person.
I haven't actually read this ahead of time, so I should have done this, but, you know, professionalism. Alright, so it comes from our good buddy Serathus, and he says, "Dear No Excuses, I have to wonder when the army decides to recruit from Twitch, do they take the expected health of the recruits into account? Remember what Octale said about wanting to join the Air Force? That he, at best, could fit into the pilot seat of one of those cargo planes. This was like 10 years ago. I mean, they're trying to get young people on board. Young people, you can shape them.
Literally.
That's all part of the initial phases of joining the army, is they kind of just break you down and rebuild you. And that, on some level, actually involves a physical rebuilding. Alright. Also, when you mentioned Zuckerborg, yes, being a lizard person, I really hope you guys are not making dog whistles about certain ethno-religious groups. That is wrong, think, and verboten. I'll have you know that the lizard people are not a monolith or hive mind. There is no lizard people conspiracy. There are two lizard people conspiracies. One trying to destroy nations, the other trying to keep a nation above all.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I think we'll just leave it packed into its little box.
Although Zuckerborg might have to be the new thing. He's not a lizard people, he is the Borg. Alright, but to write about games a little. Space. Do you love space? I like space. You can space yourself out in Hard Space Shipbreaker, a game about cutting up spaceships for scrap in zero-G. It is actually fun for the first few hours, but then you realise that there are only 2 ships with 6 variants in total in-game. It does have the potential to become a pretty fun game later on down the line. Just remember to drain the fuel from the pipes before you take a blowtorch to them. Yeah, I've looked at it. I haven't bought it yet because it's early access and I'm kind of trying to shy away from those at the moment, but just as a game to kind of sit back, relax, and methodically work your way through a process, it seems like a good fun time. The fact that there's only 2 ships, though, is kind of disappointing.
Scrap spaceships. Holy cow, there's a lot of these Marlin around.
Yeah, it's like Space Engineers, except backwards.
I already played that game, and it's called Deathwing, and it's not healthy.
Oh, yeah. To be fair, those spaceships are full of gene stealers.
I haven't seen any evidence that the ones he's talking about are not full of gene stealers.
They possibly could be. Everyone who finds them would be dead, so you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Alright, where were we? Another space game where you work for an immoral space corporation is Deep Rock Galactic. I saw this, it's Space Dwarves. Space mining with space dwarves. See, there you go. On a planet called... Oh, sorry. On a space planet that makes Catachan... Catachan? That sounds like a 40k.
Canonically, it's Catachan.
Catachan. Okay.
Catachan. Canonically, and a lot of people object to that.
They just call it Catachan anyway.
Yeah.
Catachan sounds like they're trying to make it a waifu. And
I never
40k and
like
waifus should never, ever meet.
You're going to be joking. Yeah, there's like a major community online.
I'm going to ignore that existence, because that is heresy.
Oh, yeah, it's heresy, but a lot of people are into that.
Where were we? Fight giant bugs, dwarf-eating plants, lava, radiation, and friendly fire. In procedurally generated levels that have the full destruction like Red Faction. In fact, the usual method of finishing a level is the driller simply just tunneling through the entire cave system, making a beeline to the escape pod. The only problem is, I would say, that the game is a bit grindy, and you have to play a lot to unlock the additional weapons, weapon talents, weapon upgrades, special mission modes, and perks. but it is a fun 4-player co-op experience with surprisingly non-toxic community. It's worrying we've actually reached a point where that last bit, this non-toxic community, is a selling point. Yeah,
but it never lasts very long, does it?
No.
But as far as this game goes, Max played it quite extensively. He does art for fun, and so they've got like this. They've had a number of now because drama explosions happen. Discord server where a bunch of them and their art buddies will discuss drawing and whatnot. But one of the things that they did as a group was that they picked up Deep Rock Galactic, and they were playing. He and some of his friends played that quite extensively, and he seemed to think it was a really good time, especially because like he's a competitive sort, and his preferred types of multiplayer games seem to be centered more on the shoot your friends in the middle of the forehead as quickly as possible type of game. And this doesn't go down that well with his less competitive compadres.
Yes.
But apparently this game was actually a really good fit for all of them because it was very cooperative and it didn't require you to, be a Ninja Call of Duty player or anything like that.
And it still allows plenty of opportunity to shoot each other in the face.
You were able to constructively contribute to the situation. I don't know. I don't know a lot about it personally, but it seems to be very, very popular.
Yeah,
and I think it's actually released for legit after spending a long time in early access.
Yeah. Let me see if I'll pop it up on Steam. I'm pretty sure it is out as a full release at the moment. Let's see. Deep Rock Galactic. Doopy-doopy-doo. Steam is being dumb. Oh, it's because I accidentally searched for Dep Rock, which is something entirely different. Here it is. They want $45 for it, or 45 Australian bucks. But it is not early access.
Dollary doos.
Alright. Well, they're up to about 31 updates. That's quite chugging along, and there's a whole load of DLC now too. So yeah, okay. That looks pretty cool. I'd try it, but I think we're just going to fail miserably at it. Spaced Wash.
Well, that's how we play. That's how we play games.
We tend to fail and hope we fail in the right direction.
You're not. I don't think you can seriously be, after all this time, under the impression that we can play a game without failing miserably at it.
Or sabotaging ourselves in some way.
Let us return to Deathwing. that was not what I would call successfully playing a video game.
I think that was called out in the end.
Failing in a approximately forward direction for around about one level.
Yes. Where were we? Still, there is more email. There is actually quite a lot of email. While at space, Warframe. Wait for the expansion to drop on the 25th, then knock yourself out with the revamped new player experience. Again. Cannibalize unneeded Warframes to gain their abilities, and generally just hit me up if you want to play some Cyborg Space Ninja.
Yeah, I'm always sort of in a rough position with that one because, like, on one hand, I need to restart every time I play because I don't remember anything about how to play. But on the other hand, I also don't want to restart because I'll just be, losing all the progress I made last time I played. Mm-hmm. And in the third place, playing that game makes me almost motion sick.
It is so very, very fast.
Yeah, you need to fly everywhere at a high rate of speed.
I will need to probably dust off Warframe at some point, but I've been keeping up with the Twitch Prime rewards, and pretty much every other month there seems to be some reward at the moment for Warframe. So I think I've maybe got 3 or 4 completely new frames and a whole bunch of other stuff just sitting there waiting for me to log in. I mean, I'm paying for Audible, so I get all these other goodies. I might as well collect them.
Yeah, it's not like I dislike Warframe. It's just that, on balance, as far as the type of game that it is, I think that, and by type I don't mean genre, I mean type in a more sort of general and ambiguous sense. I think that I would rather fill that particular slot with PSO2, to be honest, because they operate in the same way, really. in
Yeah.
that you've got quite a lot of grinding to do, but you do adventures around various places and hit things.
Yeah. I would like to really sit down and play some Warframe and just really get into it, but it does need that investment.
Yeah, it is like PSO2. If you want to make progress, you've got to grind.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Maybe there are shortcuts to get 65% of the way up the curve or whatever, but ultimately, if you want to be really invested in it, you got to grind.
Yeah, you can buy yourself some frames, but by and large, that's about as much power as you get. Maybe a few experience boosters and things like that. And frames can all be unlocked through gameplay anyway, if you really want to.
Yeah, but it takes time, and not a small amount of time either.
Yeah,
especially if you're going for those random drop buff card thingies.
Mm-hmm. But in order to build yourself a new frame, first you need to grind up for the recipe, which means you need to grind up for all the resources to actually build the thing, and then setting it to build, you just got to sit back and wait for quite a long time. So,
yeah.
That said, once you find a frame that you really like and you get the hang of, you tend not to worry about it too much or as much after that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I even did find one that I really liked. I'd have to. I played like a few hours worth. Like I didn't drop out after 20 minutes. I did a bunch of stages, but ultimately, I just, on top of just not being very good at it, because it requires you to have such ninja reflexes to be any good at it.
Space ninja reflexes.
The grind was daunting to me. Like
yeah.
I constantly felt like I wasn't either not good enough or I was not powerful enough to do things.
Yeah, unlike a lot of MMOs, Warframe really isn't ashamed to make you just feel like you're standing at the bottom of a mountain.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's necessarily a bad thing. I just don't know if I want to, grit my teeth and leap in head first.
Yeah.
Especially considering the amount of raw skills you need to learn, and I don't mean that in a gameplay mechanics sense of you need your character to obtain skills. I mean there's an awful lot of skills that are required on your part, technically speaking, just to be able to move effectively around a space.
Yeah. You really just need to sit down and learn the game.
Yeah, you have to go onto the training course and do it over and over again until you can do everything as like water flowing. And then you're ready to start playing.
Yes. But it is very, very satisfying when you figure it out. I'll tell you that. Anyway, last bit of email. And finally, marginally space. Factorio 1.0 releasing on the 14th. The game has been pretty much complete for ages. The last content addition was Artillery in 2017. Everything else has been polished, balancing, a redesign of the UI, and a HD version of all sprites, as well as UX and quality of life improvements. Unfortunately, the campaign has been scrapped due to the devs not being able to figure out how to actually make it work in a game like Factorio. But still, finally Factorio will be out of early access. I have 650 hours in the game since 2015, which is nothing compared to some of the VTW community. But I think Factorio is one of the best games on Steam. And that's all from Cerithus.
I mean, I've heard consistently good things about it, but I'm not sure that it really appeals to me.
I actually fired it up again a few months back. The game looks very, very nice now. Now that they've gone through and done a graphical overhaul on it, everything just looks so much better now.
Yeah, I just I'm sort of scared of those games. Is ultimately the way I would put it.
Yeah,
and I've been for many years, and the real wake up call was I think Pim might have been bought me Civilization 5.
Okay.
And I'm not really a huge Civilization fan, but I thought, I'll start this up and I'll play it for a bit. And I started that at about, mid-morning. And I fired it up, and I played a bit, and they looked out the window, and it was midnight.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need to collect more ways of doing that, I don't think.
Yeah, Factorio's not turn-based, but you'll start off and you think, okay, I need to automate my research. So you start, okay, break that down. I need to make red potions. In order to make red potions, I need X, Y, and Z. Okay, set that process up. Now to make green potions, I need X, Y, and Z. Each of those needs X, Y, and Z. And by the time you sit down and plan out your base, set up all the production lines, realize that you need more power and expand all that, decide that you want to move a bit faster, so throw some concrete around the place, fend off a few waves of aliens, yeah, your time is gone.
Yeah, so essentially what I'm saying is that I don't really like that type of game, but the reason I don't really like that type of game is because I'm afraid I might like that type of game too much.
It's all about efficiency.
I just don't need to stick my head into that. I have little enough free time as it is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to ditch a gacha game. I don't need to add something that's even more corrosive to my soul.
It's why I'm very reluctant to start up multiplayer games of Stellaris. Because if I do that, last time I did that, my entire day disappeared. And we'd ended up making some shenanigan like coalition between planet-eating bacteria and a homicidal AI. So that's Stellaris for you. Thank you very much for your email, Seraphis.
He's always asking me to try Factorio, and I am always tempted, but the consequences are dire.
Yes, they are. You can try Satisfactory for a very pretty, but ultimately lighter weight version of the same concept, for those who are interested in it. But it has all the same problems. Like, you will start going down that line of optimizing your process, and suddenly your day is just gone.
Yeah, I don't want to be stuck in that infinite rabbit hole.
Ooh, I'm out in front. No, I'm getting overtaken by a guy with a duck hat, I think. No, damn, no, not the mob. I just got trampled by the mob. Alright, so, we have a few bits of news.
Of a sort, yes.
Yes, shenanigans did happen. People got way overexcited this week.
Yeah, and, you know, if what they had thought had happened had actually happened, that would be cause for excitement and probably celebration.
Yep. So let's start off with that.
It would also be, you know, 2020.jpg.
Pretty much. Seriously, what is this year?
It's a small taster preview of next year.
That's all we need. So, there was another executive order in the wake of TikTok getting banned for basically being a blatant data collection farm for the Chinese government. This time, targeting WeChat by Tencent Games, or Tencent rather. The problem
the thing that you've got to remember with Tencent is that they have their fingers in every pie. If it runs on electricity, then Tencent has money invested in it.
Yes. They can't help themselves. They are in every single pie. So yeah, people got overexcited because they saw WeChat, and WeChat is Tencent. Therefore, Tencent is getting blocked everywhere. That's not what is happening. At least not yet.
We should be so lucky. I mean, maybe it will happen in the future, but I wouldn't bank on it.
Yeah.
That would be practically a declaration of war at that point.
I mean, it's pretty much on the verge of happening at the current moment anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't get overexcited because Orange Man is taking out Tencent. He's not yet. He's only attacking one part of it, being WeChat.
Although, to be fair, WeChat is a humongous. It's like got a humongous presence among those communities that use it. Like it's the de facto communication method.
Yes.
Like most countries have one that they predominantly use. Like for instance, in Japan, it's Line. I think is their favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But in China and by Chinese nationals in other countries, WeChat is pretty much dominant.
Yep. For the West, it's hang on, WhatsApp by
I
and
think
large.
yeah, I think it's a combination of WhatsApp and just using the raw Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, Facebook Messenger tends to be rather popular around here, but there's also an equal number of people using WhatsApp. There's also actually was anyway, a lot of people using TikTok. So
Yeah, I don't reckon that you should
you really shouldn't.
that's basically no, well, it's not basically, it's literally spyware.
Yeah,
You're probably not doing yourself any favors.
and this is why you just don't social media. It's a cancer. Don't.
Yeah, I pretty much use Discord to communicate with anybody that I think is worth communicating. If they aren't on Discord and I actually need to talk to them, I just make a phone call.
Yeah. I do have people I still talk to via Steam, but by and large it's Discord. Although I do have one family member who has to use WeChat because he's a Luddite.
My workmates think I'm a Luddite because I don't use WeChat.
No,
And I don't use Facebook.
you just don't want to give your information to the lizard people.
Yeah. Man, those lizard people, they're involved in everything.
They seriously are.
Like, ultimately, it's gonna be a choice being ruled by the CCP and the lizard people, and I'm not sure which is gonna be worse.
I'll take the lizard people.
Yeah, the lizard people are currently my preferred bet.
We're familiar
Because,
with the
I mean,
lizard people.
Yeah, and they manage to keep their heads down most of the time. Like, they don't involve themselves in our daily affairs. They just, scheme behind the scenes and stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, people did get overexcited. Orange Man not taking out Tencent, but the executive order is rather vague and it does call out Tencent by name. So you never know; it might yet happen.
Well, it means that they're watching them, if
They
nothing
are very
else.
watching them.
They know that there is a connection between the data harvesting and the broader Tencent entity, and they are not amused. And it's one of those things that nobody will ever give Donald Trump credit for because he's Donald Trump, but he has been harping on the China thing endlessly.
Yes.
And people can say, "Oh, well, it's just talk, it's just bravado," because he was actually trying to make a deal with them. But Donald Trump tries to make a deal with everybody. That's his thing.
It's kind of what he does.
Yeah, like he's not really worried about the finer points of it because he always reckons that in any given situation you can make a deal.
Yeah.
And that's his default stance. But the fact that he's been willing to beat the drum against China is something that nobody else has been willing to do. And there's a good chance, in my opinion, that his opposition is going to suicidally take a pro-China position during the lead up to the election.
Yeah.
Just because Orange Man bad.
Because Orange Man bad. We just not Orange Man bad. Orange Man not necessarily good. Orange Man okay.
Yeah, like, I mean, Oompa Loompas are pretty creepy, but they're not necessarily bad.
Yeah. Anyway.
Like,
I cannot get out of this pit with an egg because everyone's in the way. Also, you can't really...
everybody is in everybody else's way as well.
Yeah, there we go. Hooray! No, my egg! Oh. I seem to have got it stuck. Alright, so yeah, that's basically it. Don't hold your breath on Tencent being taken out by Orange Man just yet.
Yeah, it would be nice, but we can't have everything, or at least not without working for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do hope that they will keep a keen eye on it because, in an ideal world, I think the CCP would just implode in upon itself due to internal corruption and dissolve, and then we could just break up Tencent and have them run as independent companies. Because honestly, if they were turned as a force for good, not conceptualized as a monopoly, but as their individual entities, I think they could do a lot of good because of the simple fact that Tencent is the only company that is willing to make risky investments these days.
Yes.
And I've harped on this at length because I think it's a major problem with the Western games industry is their insistence on trotting out the same game over and over again. because they're scared of taking a risk on a new idea, which is why everybody is way more interested in what's happening in the indie space than the latest triple A's.
Yes.
That's just the way it is. It's the result of their overly conservative development.
Yeah.
And the only time that developers these days try and be adventurous is on, things that don't matter. Like, you can make an argument, if you were the sort of person who would want to do so, that the storyline, the plotting of Last of Us 2 is a deviation from the norm that would normally be tried in that situation. It's not a straightforward adventure story. It's a sort of like revenge depression fest. And that's adventurous after its own fashion, because that's not a surefire crowd pleaser of a story.
Mm-hmm.
It's auteur in that sense. But ultimately, that's not going to change anything. It's not going to make anybody want to do that in future. It's not going to make anybody expand on that idea. It's just to, soothe somebody's creative impulses, namely Neil Druckmann and nobody else.
Yeah, it's why the first Last of Us actually did quite well. Because they did that, but they did it the right way.
Well, they scratched an itch in the narrative space, which really resonated with certain people. And I don't believe that happened with the second one. The second one was just, inconsequential changes to the type of story they changed. They told, which only resulted in it being viewed as generally quite bad. But the thing that stuck out to most people who looked at it with a reviewing eye was that there was no evolution in the game.
Yeah.
So the genre doesn't move forward.
And ultimately,
No
nothing
progress
is achieved.
Yeah. The only thing they were willing to be adventurous with was the thing that would get them, publicity via the all publicity is good publicity route.
Yeah. But, yeah. I mean, so yeah, Tencent could potentially good. Like, the CCP, as it stands now and the way they're currently going, will sooner or later collapse on their own.
It just depends on how much of the world they take with them.
Yeah. And that's what they seem to be shaping up to do. Because, yeah, such things always do. Alright. What else does we has?
Well, there's been I'm not sure what the core story behind it is, but there's been an awful lot of hoo-ha lately about Blizzard and their employee-employer relations and their compensation packages and other related topics. It seems to have stolen quite a bit of attention lately.
Unfortunately, I haven't looked into it at all, because it's like, it's corporate drama.
So I'm not quite sure what has really triggered it this time. But it seems that there was a breakdown in negotiations, basically. No, there was the opposite of a breakdown in negotiations, and that the negotiations were completed successfully, but nothing specific enough was negotiated, so it ended up causing havoc anyway. So what I believe happened, and this is going to be a loose explanation since I'm not exactly down with the inner workings of the games industry, is that there had been a dispute over the pay rates at Blizzard, because Blizzard is notorious for passion pay, which is the principle that you can pay people less if they like their job.
Yeah. Newsflash, no.
Ultimately, they said, okay, so we need to capitulate, because otherwise we're going to have people losing en masse. So they gave a round of raises, and it turned out that they were all pathetic, by and large. So this basically created an explosion of sorts, and one of the things that came out of this was an anonymous spreadsheet was circulated around Blizzard where people could write their compensation details. And it turns out that there are a lot of people getting paid a relatively pitiful amount, largely in light of where Blizzard has situated itself geographically, aka in the most expensive place to live possibly in the world.
Yeah.
So you've got, people who are working for, $18 American an hour, trying to live in a city where rent starts at about $3,000 a month.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
So this is basically redounded to broad humiliation on Blizzard's part. Like they have taken so many reputation hits over the past few years, and this is just another one adding to the pile. Then another thing broke in that their performance bonuses come in the form of honor points.
Yeah, I saw that.
You can redeem for merch at the Blizzard store.
You could get Blizzard merch.
So rather than actually paying them, they will give you merch. Because hopefully the people who are charging you for rent and utilities are huge fans of Blizzard and really want that merch because you've got to pay the rent somehow.
I mean, if it was stuff that you could only get internally, you could get it and then you could just stick it up on eBay or something. But I have a sneaking suspicion it's just the same tat that's on their regular stores.
Yeah, garbage, in other words.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically every time something else comes out about the conditions for Blizzard employees and what they're paid, it just looks worse and worse for them. Like, yeah, there is commentary floating about people saying that they don't eat lunch because they can't afford anything at the Blizzard cafeteria. They spend all day just drinking coffee so that they don't feel hungry. That type of thing.
Yeah,
basically they're working under crappy conditions. Whether or not Blizzard wants to believe it, that is sooner or later that's going to have an effect on their output.
Yeah,
and it does really seem like they're experiencing quite a bit of churn. What I don't understand really is ultimately, is there a good reason why all of these developers have to be located in LA and places like that? Like,
no, really, I don't think there is.
Even people that live there will tell you that it's the crappiest place on earth to live.
Yeah.
Like, there's garbage and feces all over the streets. It's cramped. It's noisy. The traffic is unbearably bad. There's just nothing good about living in that place.
But it's Silicon Valley. No, it's not. I don't know, honestly. Why do all these developers set up there? Is it just because that's where the talent is?
I don't think it is, because people relocate to work there.
Yeah.
So, unless what you're doing is just, incestuously poaching off each other in Silicon Valley.
Well, yes, but
that's the only way that there's talent there. If all you need to do to find talent elsewhere is be elsewhere. Because there's no reason why somebody can't leave a place that they hate to go work at your company if you build it somewhere else.
If they hate it, they very much would if they could be guaranteed stable work.
But, yeah, it just doesn't seem like... The only thing I can think of is that Blizzard exists at their campus in wherever the heck it was. I can't remember the name of the place.
Anaheim?
It's in California anyway. No, that's where the convention center is. They are in that place for the same reason people go and voluntarily work at Blizzard, and that's because they have a fairy tale idea of what it is. That's the only thing I can think of. That they in California because they believe that California is the place to be, despite all indications to the contrary. The same reason people go and work at Blizzard, because they love Blizzard. They think Blizzard is the place to work, despite all indications to the contrary. Yeah, but used to. Now we're talking, 15 years ago. Yeah. We're not talking 2 years ago. We're talking the team that developed Diablo 2, the team that launched World of Warcraft. That team.
Yeah, they're gone.
It's a long time ago.
Gone. So, I don't know. There must be some reason they all set up there, but I don't know.
Even the taxes are absurd there, if I recall correctly.
If I recall, need to hurry for that.
There's not really any good reason to be there at all. Like, there's tons of other places that you'd be better off setting up, as far as I'm concerned. The other thing that seems reasonable is like places might set up there simply because the investors are only looking to invest there, and that other places are viewed as a risk because they've got strange ideas about what it means to be in California. Like, at the price, if you can afford to live in California, you can afford a plane ticket to move your stuff to another state. I'm sorry. There's no reason to be there. I can't wrap my head around it. Why would you live in a place that's widely acknowledged to be Satan's butt crack if you can be somewhere else?
Oh dear. Alright, we're going to do a memory game this time around.
All right, do we have anything else to talk about?
Mostly it's what is actually in the PSO2 patch. And there's a lot of stuff.
Right. Yes. More stuff than you can shake a photon-powered stick at, I guess.
I guess.
I cannot wrap my mind around the amount of stuff they brought in here, and I just wish they brought it in slower. My goodness.
Oh boy, yeah, it's a massive lump of stuff. So first and foremost, it's on Steam now.
Yep, and you've got to undertake an awkward procedure to port your stuff over, which thankfully is relatively smooth once you've got it going.
Yeah, it's not the worst transfer procedure I've ever seen.
Although it does they do vaguely imply that you're permanently shackled to your original platform in some way.
Yeah, like once you've got your accounts linked, then yeah, you can just play it on both.
Yeah, but you have one of them will be your sort of primary one, and I'm not sure whether you can then export from Steam to somewhere else. Like I don't know. What I'm saying ultimately is that I'm unsure of what risk factors might be involved in completely uninstalling the Microsoft Store version.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet.
Nor have I, for that reason.
Yeah, partly because I spent so much time over the last few months wrangling that Microsoft Store version just to get it to work, and now that I've finally got it actually stable, here comes the Steam version. So I am a little bit salty. Anyway, so yeah, it is now out in 33 countries, a good chunk of the Western world, as well as a good chunk of Asia as well. I'm not going to list them all again because the list isn't here. We have a player cap put up to level 80 now, so yeah, more talent points basically. They've added a few new talents and things in there as well. It's a couple of them you can only get access to at level 80. Which does raise an issue, actually. I've noticed there's one, the high-level talent, you can only get at level 80, and it's 5-point talent. So you might have to save some points for that.
They might have put in ways to get points by other means.
If they can do another one of those, here's your points quests.
Like I think that there was systems that I saw mentioned somewhere a while back of trading class EX cubes for skill points.
Ah, right, okay.
But I don't know much about it.
I don't know how to get those yet. I know I'm going to get one more talent.
They're just
for a
class EX cubes are just what you get when you level up after max level.
Oh, okay. That's all that is. All right. Increased levels of photon arts and techniques, naturally. That's not here or there, really. New skills for players, that's that. All right, PvP is now in the game. There is an arena somewhere on the ship. I haven't actually played it yet, but apparently, yeah, it's...
Yeah, it's like PvP light. Like you go in and you mine a weapon.
Yes.
that you want to use at random, and then you run around pew-pewing people with the preset abilities and avoiding environmental hazards and so on and so forth. It's basically it's a mini game. It's not PvP using your characters or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think ultimately I think that putting PvP in MMOs is a misguided goal unless your entire game is constructed around it to the exclusion of all other things. So
yeah.
don't mind it just being a mini game. I think anything more than a mini game just ends up being it's a corrosive gear race.
Yeah. Okay. And having a massively overpowered character or a massively high level character in PvP, it's just okay, this would be fun, but that guy over there is just dominating everyone, so not fun. So yeah, I'm glad they've gone that route, even though I'm not entirely sure I'm sold on it at this point. I'll have to actually just try it. Yeah, finding a weapon is kind of weird, though.
I think that the mini game approach is, I feel like in a weird way it sort of suits PSO2
Yep.
in that everything in PSO2 is sort of like a gimmick.
Yes.
I mean, there's not really, like, you could take a lore explanation and that, you know, it doesn't really make sense for them to fight each other seriously using all of their legendary gear and whatnot. Or you could just simply put it down to the fact that pretty much everything outside of Ark's missions is Ark's dicking around.
There is an awful lot of Ark sticking around.
Like, that's just their society is based around people who they spend their lives at war with the most horrifying creatures imaginable, and in their downtime they just want to dick about doing stupid crap.
Yeah. Which is actually what a lot of the new event seems to be like. It's like you go out onto a beach and here's all these lore characters and all they're trying to do is dick about. But these monsters keep spawning on them.
Their day job is so horrible.
It is.
Like, from the point of view where we sit, we're just, you know, shooting things on a screen. But, you know, as somebody who has tried to play Monster Hunter with a VR headset, looking at a monster up close is not fun. Like, you feel all the time like it's about to step on you. So for these people, their day job kind of sucks and they probably just want to chill. So fighting for their life against somebody who's, you know, in full regalia as they would be when trying to fight, you know, Darkfile's Elder or something, probably not really the way they want to entertain themselves.
Yeah, like I've actually started watching the tie-in anime. Was it Episode Echo or whatever it was?
Oracle, I think.
Episode Oracle, thank you. That's it. But yeah, it's pretty horrible what's going on. Like every episode, somebody dies, and in some cases, it's pretty horrible.
Yeah, it's not a fun times life that they lead. Like, you get that impression a lot because there's so much sticking around goes on in game, but the core setting is, you know, it's a race at war. Like, you are soldiers who are fighting a war for the survival of your respective races.
Basically, of all life everywhere, really.
Yeah, because the universe is about to be digested by a giant hand or whatever. Like,
or whatever.
Yeah, it's not actually a fun job in a lot of ways. No. So it sort of makes sense by the internal logic that PvP would be you know, conceptualized as a game like playing Airsoft rather than as, you know, hardcore war games where everybody's trying to butcher everybody else.
Yeah, you can frame it as a training exercise, I suppose, but
we have a lot of training exercises, and they always end up very strange.
Yes, we do. So yeah, you can frame it as a framing exercise, but ultimately it's just more dicking about. But dicking about in such a grim setting is fine. They don't really dig too deep on the actual plot of PSO2, because the deeper you dig, the more depressing it gets.
Yeah, it's not really the nicest place to live.
Yep. We have bonus quests. Now, what happens is when you finish a mission with a or better rank, is you have a chance to get a key now. And that key will unlock a bonus quest, which is usually some variety of silly event that gives you a massive reward.
Yeah, I've got a couple of these keys, but I haven't used any yet.
No, neither have I. I've got a couple of the rappy ones, actually. And
don't bank them. That's the thing that people seem to be neglecting to mention in a lot of these things. Do not bank them. Use them. Because if you don't use them, they'll just expire on you.
Oh, right. Yeah, they've got times on them.
Yeah, they only last like a week or something.
So use them before they're gone. All right, we have new places to do stuff, namely Tokyo and Las Vegas, but there's also a few other bits and pieces as well in there. Now, Tokyo and Las Vegas are not your standard exploration quests. They're more do stuff until you collect so many points type quests. Because they're so big and open, they've actually given you Ridroids, as they call them, which is basically a hover motorbike type thing. Which honestly controls kind of like arse.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that.
Yeah,
it's something you can get used to, but you ain't going to enjoy it.
No, it could be designed a lot better, but hasn't been. More to the point, there's also additional quests with the Ridroids called for races, which involve you flying through circles and things. I'm not sure how that's going to work because I still haven't figured out how to fly downwards on them yet.
So what? You just end up jumping off? I
Yeah,
haven't
pretty
tried
much.
it yet.
That's how I usually do it, is just jump off and grab another one. Because usually you don't have to go all that far. You're also supposed to be able to shoot things with it. Like it says you right click to shoot in the tutorial, and no, that's how you get off. And there's no shoot action on the bar. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But yeah, they're pretty awful. But Tokyo and Las Vegas are very silly. If anyone's done the training, the Las Vegas training exercise, you already know some of what you're into. You're not fighting Foalspawn, you're fighting...
That's a clown fiesta. In some cases, literally.
Supposedly, it's creatures, entities, I guess. Hang on, why am I back in this? That seem to feed off humanity's thoughts and create bodies for themselves that way. What that ultimately means is you're fighting against giant rabbits or Optimus Prime. The final boss of Las Vegas I've alluded to already. It's incredibly strange. It is probably the absolute most Sega thing. And I'm not going to spoil it. You've got to go witness this thing horribly. Because it does actually have a rather nasty attack that if you do not get out of the way for it, it will one-shot you.
That's most attacks.
Yeah.
That's been my experience. Most bosses will do that if you get hit by their
Unlike
attacks.
most attacks, though, it cuts straight through Summoner's Dear Master shenanigans.
Oh, I don't have that issue. I just die all the time.
Yeah.
So,
well,
but what I'm taking from this is that collectively, humanity spends a lot of time thinking about Optimus Prime.
I mean, yes. But yeah, I have learned actually, once you start really getting to the later stage, the higher levels and the later stages of the game, Summoner's health bar becomes binary.
Follow empty.
Yeah, it's either you're alive or you're not. There's not a whole lot of difference beyond that.
Well, you don't get hit the way other people do, so...
Yeah. But should I take a hit, then all that health, or that terminal health, gets transferred to my pet, which usually explodes on the spot.
Yeah, don't do that then.
Yeah,
That seems like a bad...
Provided I've got a pet up, I'm not going to die. It basically gives me a second hit point.
Well, that explains why all the guides for summoners say don't do anything involving your own self-preservation. There's no point.
There is
Just
really
focus-
no point. Yeah, you can sometimes funnel health over to your pet, and your pet will not explode, depending on which pet you're using, and how much hit points it has. But yeah, by and large, it's just going to go bang. Alright, so what have we got? We got seasonal quests. At the moment is the summer quest, and it involves everyone's in swimsuits. And I've already gotten the most eye-melting swimsuit in all of history.
For a cast?
Well, for males in general. It shows way too much everything. I don't want it.
See.
But, so, I
see.
actually got... so I'm going to throw a few AP at the cards. Just only maybe 2 cards to see what I get. I was hoping for the banana boat emote, and I got it.
Congratulations.
So now I can just hang around wherever I am on an enormous banana. For no reason.
Your life is now complete.
My life is, well, it's something. It involves a large banana. But yeah, I also got a tiny, tiny red thong. Which I will probably either use very sparingly or never use and pretend it's never there.
No, you need to use it all the time when you're playing with your brother.
I mean,
Just
as far as the event...
Fish on head, thong on crotch. That's all you need.
I will do that tonight, I think. Fish on head, thong on crotch. And let's see if I can make his eyeballs melt.
Steve even notices.
I think you'd notice the thong. It's kind of hard to miss, and you'd really wish you could miss it. So yeah, the summer events isn't anything special. There's an event where everyone's faffing about on a beach and there's monsters. You can get weapon skins from it. Some of them actually look really cool. And beyond that, it's just the usual nonsense of here are monsters, go for fight. We've got new quests, new challenges, new explorers, going down the list. There are, because it's now on Steam, there are a bunch of promo items you can get as well. So you log on Steam once and you get a few of them, and then just keep logging in, do a couple of quests, and you'll unlock all of them by and large. Most of them are Portal themed.
I heard you can get Pyro's mask.
Yeah, I've unlocked Pyro's mask. I don't know how I did that, but I've got it. And you can get a Wheatley skin for your mag if you want to have the wrong core. Should be Space Core. It should always be Space Core.
I've always found that very, very strange. Is that the one everybody remembers as fondly as Space Core. Nobody likes Wheatley, but all of the merch and all of the promos and all that stuff is always Wheatley.
If it was only the first half of Portal 2, if you haven't played Portal 2, bucket on head, I guess, spoilers. Wheatley is kind of your best friend for the first half, and he is a lot of fun. For the second half, he's now the big bad. And he turns into an asshole. And he is wonderfully good at it.
When you actually like GLaDOS better, I mean, that shows that you may have slipped off the moral event horizon.
Yeah, when GLaDOS is the lesser evil. I mean, everyone likes GLaDOS, but she's a bad guy right from the get-go, and she's not really.
She's a bad guy, but she comes by it on.
She enjoys it.
That's just her job, that's all.
But Wheatley's entire role in existing is he's an idiot. And he turns into an evil idiot. I mean, if he was actually called by his proper name, he would be the Idiot Core, or the Moron Core, I think it was. He was designed to make GLaDOS stupider. So anyway, Portal 2, go play it. It's a great game. Also, you are now spoiled.
I don't think I ever actually did play it. I literally sat and watched somebody play through it.
Yeah.
IRL.
I mean, it might be time to go dust it off again if you can't remember how all the puzzles worked.
I don't remember how any of them worked, to be quite blunt.
You also get this ridiculous long... well, basically anything Cave Johnson says is pure gold.
Yeah, about lemons and stuff.
About lemons. So yeah, and let me think. You can add more stuff to your alliance quarters. Basically, you've got more gear options now in PSO2, as well as if you're a summoner, you're starting to get the stuff you actually need to play your class properly.
Have you looked at the new collection folder?
I have. I've already got a 13-star red
full of eggs.
It is.
It's full of eggs.
13-star eggs. And then I actually need to go and talk to the summoner trainer, despite my intentions to the contrary. Because he's weird and creepy. And does an alarmingly good Obi-Wan Kenobi impersonation.
Well, hello there.
Hello there. So yeah, that's, I think 13-star, possibly 14-star eggs drop now, but if you want 13-star eggs quick, you've got to go and do the thing.
So have you sussed what you're supposed to feed to your 13-star eggs?
Yeah, I think I've got a hang of that now. I need to basically continue what I'm doing. I've got one pet at 8 stars. He's just about full on all his stats, but we'll see what happens when it levels up beyond that. Because I'm not sure if it actually increases the caps yet. Because if it does, then we're going to have to do another round of pet cannibalization. I might have to do that anyway. I did have to advise, actually. I've been teaching my brother how to play the game and how it works, and one of my first pieces of advice was do not roll summon to start with.
Yeah, well, I mean, you knew what you were getting into. You knew it was going to be ridiculously complicated.
I did, but I wasn't quite expecting exactly how needlessly complicated it is. Like, to play the actual class in the game and actually out in the field is relatively simple, as long as you can remember your pet's rotations and how to get out of trouble.
And then you met the candy box.
And then I met the candy box. It's all in your preparation and your building. Finally, I think the final large thing is crafting, which I've only just touched on a little bit.
I haven't really tried anything with it. I've broken down a few bits of junk that I had lying around, but I haven't tried to actually make anything yet.
Yeah. What I think is actually nice is you can basically put an auction order for a crafting project out, and then someone else can just pick it up and make the item for you if you don't have the recipe.
What do they get out of it?
Money.
What, is it just setter?
Money and experience, crafting experience, yeah. But
right, so do you like proc good crafts or something? Like, why do you want crafting experience? What does that do?
As you go up more levels, you unlock more abilities, more recipes.
Right.
So basically, you just either gather your materials out in the field using mining or fishing, or you break down items to get what you need. Then you can make new items, or you can kind of rebuild existing items to make them better. And in the cases of some units, actually make them good and not completely useless. But beyond digging too far on that, I haven't seen too much. Alright, so yeah, it's a lot of stuff that we've barely even scratched the surface on. Ow! Okay, the cat is biting me. What does he want?
To bite you, obviously.
I guess. He just snuck up and bit me on the leg. So, yeah, it's a very big patch, and unfortunately, I think given the rate that we're going through at the moment, by the time anyone really comes to terms with exactly what's in this, we'll be looking at Chapter 7. Because, we are being rushed.
It almost feels like this game is being deployed for the sake of people who were already playing on the Japanese server.
It does a bit, doesn't it?
Seems a little bit backwards.
Yeah, get everything out, because very soon we're going to have Chapter 7, which I believe is the Phantom patch?
The next patch that comes out is going to be the Hero one.
Yeah. Hero, that's it. And I'm not sure if Phantom's going to be with that one or if they're going to put that back a bit. Because Phantom, I need to strip out my subclass and completely redo everything. Yay!
What, is it obligatory to use that?
Yes. For a summoner, there is no better one to go for. It's either Fighter or Phantom. And there's no other options. You can try Tector, I guess, but it's just not quite as good.
Or maybe if you were wanting to play a very support-oriented summoner or something, I don't know.
Or something, yeah. Tector is actually a lot stranger to play than I thought it was. Like, half of it is support, or instead of playing with your dual disc, you can take out a rod, which essentially means running up and smashing a monster in the face, then striking it with lightning. I did actually start playing Gunner as a subclass, or a second class, by the way. It is a very strange class. If you touch the ground at any point, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I only had a little bit of a taste of it, but it's quite difficult to play outside of a group that is actively cooperating with you.
Yeah, I've had that. If a monster kind of goes wherever it feels like, it's going to spot you out of the sky. But looking at the talent tree, everything is built towards aerial attacks. So getting up in the air, bouncing the odd monster up in the air, and keeping them there. Although I need to actually get a ring in order to do the flip in the air.
It does have the highest efficiency, high speed movement technique in the game.
Yes, it does. So yeah, you equip a pair of Uzis and you can suddenly fly.
That's just how the world works, Fern. Weren't you paying attention in physics class?
That gravity is an optional element.
Gravity is terrified of Uzis.
All right, cat. All right. Hang on. Let me deal with this cat. Is there anything else, I think, for the PSO2 patch?
Well, I mean, when you say that, there's probably tons of stuff, but I don't necessarily know what it is. Like, for instance, I think the new Ultimate Quest is out as well.
I believe so.
But I haven't spent much time in Ultimate Quest because they're sort of an intense environment and you kind of need a lot of cooperation from every party in the area to do it.
Yeah. They're not something you can really just roll into.
No, they're meant as endgame content. You are not supposed to go in there unprepared. You are not supposed to go in there with bad gear. You are not supposed to go in there being bad at your class. And you're absolutely not supposed to go in there with NPC allies because you're just wasting slots that players could occupy.
But gotta bring Affin along.
No.
No.
No, you don't.
You really don't. He's awful. Pretty much all the NPC allies, like they'll fill the role and they give you the buffs of being in groups, but that's about it. All right. Any other news?
I don't know. I can't think of anything.
No, I can't think of anything. I think we might be actually done.
There probably are a few things. It didn't feel like a quiet week, but you know, everybody on social media was basically talking about Fall Guys and Blizzard, and I didn't really see any other major topics.
Fall Guys is at least a lot of fun.
For now.
Well,
I think that it's very much going to be a question of what sort of long-term potential does it have.
Yeah. Like I said, if they keep the content coming, I think it'll have some legs. Also, it is dog time, so that's officially time to end the show.
Evidently.
So, let's see. Closing comments go.
I'm looking forward to getting some time on PSO2, but I'm grieving over having to resolve myself to ditching the Boat Waifus game.
Well. You can fill it up with Fate Waifus instead.
Yeah, I guess I got no choice.
Until the Gacha decides it's going to stab you in the face. I'd say it stab you in the back, but it's never exactly been blatant about, coy about its intentions.
No, not at all.
I'm going to keep digging away. I'm looking forward to actually being able to play D&D properly with this new group. Hopefully, we actually survive our second outing.
Well, it's the most important thing is that the group survives. It doesn't really matter whether the characters do.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I mean, my character might survive a lot of things, but we actually, the DM actually did a damage calculation on a hypothetical, which was basically, if I attack the big bat or the big good lady, what would happen? I forget exactly I forget what the actual damage numbers were, but the term pink mist comes to mind.
Wow, so that's like a level beyond Chunky Salsa.
Yeah, that is way beyond Chunky Salsa. Something like hits a level 5 character for 80 odd damage. That would finish off pretty much any character. And that was actually with if he'd made a dodge save. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully no one gets suicidally stupid, is all I can say. At least before I get my aura on. So with that, email topic of the week. If you have any D&D shenanigans stories, by all means share them. I love listening to people's nonsense they get up to in D&D. I think that's it. So, thank you very much for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week.